Why do you think the enemy always goes after your money first? Because if he can keep you broke, he can keep you busy. Busy stressing over rent. Busy begging God for daily bread when he already gave you the blueprint to own the bakery. You don't have a money problem. You have a warfare problem. Wealth isn't worldly. It's warfare. And until you learn how to fight back, you'll stay stuck where you are. But not after today. Let's just get this out of the way. Yes, we're talking about money. And no, it's not unspiritual. In fact, God talks about money more than prayer, more than fasting, more than heaven or hell. Why? Because money is one of the loudest forces on earth. It shapes culture. It builds nations. It funds missions. It feeds families. It either fuels your purpose or frustrates it. But let's be honest. Most believers only talk about money when they don't have it. In the church, 9 out of 10 prayer requests are financial. Lord, help me pay this bill. God, open a door for a job. Please make a way. We're short again this month. And I'm not here to shame anyone. But I need to ask, what if we've misunderstood the whole point? What if God isn't just trying to bail us out? What if he's trying to build us up? Because here's the truth, and it might sting a little. You can't fund vision with good intentions. You need provision. Not for flexing. Not for fame. But because the kingdom runs on resources. That microphone your pastor uses? Paid for. That building you worship in? Paid for. That missionary across the world? Sent and sustained by money. We don't glorify money, but we don't demonize it either. Because money in righteous hands changes lives. Money in your hands can change history. And if we keep avoiding this conversation because it makes us uncomfortable, we'll keep raising believers with big faith, but small fruit. That ends now. If you're going to win this war on wealth, you have to stop thinking like a bystander and start thinking like a soldier. See, in warfare, one of the oldest military strategies is to cut off the enemy's supply line. Why? Because hungry soldiers don't fight. Starved troops don't march. And the enemy? He's been using this strategy on believers for centuries. Cut off their resources, keep them scrambling, make them beg for just enough to survive. And you know what happens? They never have the energy, the clarity, or the capacity to fight for their calling. And yet, here we are playing defense, hoping to just get by, living paycheck to paycheck and calling it being wise. But defense alone never wins a war. You can't take new ground if all you do is protect old territory. It's time to stop surviving and start advancing. Start thinking offensively. Start building like you're preparing for a fight, not a picnic. Because here's what I've learned. Money isn't neutral. It moves things. It solves problems. It opens doors. And if we keep pretending that we can fulfill massive kingdom assignments with no financial strategy, we're setting ourselves up for burnout, not breakthrough. So, what does a battlefield mindset look like? It means you wake up every day and remind yourself, this isn't just a job. It's my training ground. This isn't just income. It's my ammunition. This isn't just budgeting. It's building. You weren't called to tiptoe through life. You were called to tear down strongholds, and that takes resources. So stop shrinking. Pick up your sword, and let's start moving forward. Now that you're thinking like a soldier, let's talk about your ammo. Because in this war, provision isn't luxury, it's strategy. Provision is not about living in excess. It's about being equipped. It's about being ready when God says go. Imagine a general sending troops into battle. But they have no bullets, no boots, no backup. That's not faith. That's negligence. And yet, how many believers are praying for God to use them, but refusing to get the resources they'll need when He does? Let's be real. That church plant needs funding. That outreach program needs funding. That media platform, that scholarship, that mission trip, every one of them needs funding. Provision fuels vision. And when we lack provision, it doesn't just delay our dreams, it delays our obedience. You think you're being humble by staying broke? No. You're being unarmed in a battle that requires firepower. Every dollar in your hand is either a seed or a shield. It protects what God gave you, or it helps plant something that lasts beyond you. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to be a millionaire, but I am saying this. Every single believer is called to multiply. That may look like 10 talents for some, and 2 for others. But either way, the mandate is the same. Take what you've been given and grow it. Stop thinking of money as a worldly trap. Start seeing it as a kingdom tool. In the hands of the wicked, money builds empires of destruction. But in the hands of the righteous, it funds freedom. So, if you've been waiting for permission, here it is. You're allowed to want provision. You're supposed to have what you need. Because that's not greed, that's preparation. You're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for everyone who comes after you. This isn't just about your bills. It's about your bloodline. It's about building something your children and their children can stand on. Because listen, if you didn't come from a wealthy family, then a wealthy family should come from you. This is generational warfare. And it's not just financial. It's spiritual. Because every time you break a cycle, you shift a future. Every time you multiply what God gave you, you create new floors that your children can stand on and leap from. Proverbs 13 verse 22 says, "A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children." That's not just about leaving some money in a bank account. That's about legacy. That's about systems, strategies, fortresses that outlast you. That's about setting the next generation up with momentum, not just memories. And I know it might feel heavy. You might be thinking, but I'm still trying to survive. How can I think about legacy? And I get it. But let me tell you, the enemy hopes you never look up long enough to see beyond your own lack. Because if you ever realize what's possible, not just for you, but for your entire family tree, you become a threat. You are the chain breaker. You are the first. You are the one that shifts the story. No more passing down poverty like it's a family heirloom. No more handing your kids anxiety about bills and calling it humility. What would it feel like to tell your child, you'll never need a student loan? It's already handled. You want to launch that business? Here's seed capital. You feel called to missions? Go. The ticket's paid for. That's what generational wealth does. It gives your children options. And options give them freedom. So, if you can't do it for you, do it for them. Do it so they don't have to fight the same financial battles you did. Do it so they can run while others are still learning to crawl. You might be the first in your family to build a fortress, but you won't be the last, because your obedience becomes their foundation. This is not a mindset pep talk. This is mindset warfare, because you're not just battling negative thoughts. You're battling strongholds. And the most dangerous ones are the ones that sound wise. Let's call them out. I just want enough to get by. Money doesn't matter. Wealth will make me prideful. Godliness means having less. You hear how holy they sound? But they're nothing more than spiritual sounding lies, crafted to keep you small, scared, and stuck. Let me say it plain. Scarcity isn't strategy. It's surrender. It's the white flag we wave when fear becomes our advisor, and small thinking becomes our shield. But you weren't called to cope. You were called to conquer. You know what's wild? Most believers don't even recognize these thoughts as spiritual attacks. They've been camouflaged by culture, dressed in humility and labeled contentment. But let me tell you what it really is. It's agreement with hell's agenda to keep God's children broke and bound. While the wicked write the rules, run the media, shape the culture, and fund the future. If the enemy can take your mind, he doesn't need your money. Because you'll self-sabotage the moment anything good comes near. You'll shrink back. You'll disqualify yourself. You'll say things like, that's for people like them, not for me. And listen, this isn't just about the fear of not having. Sometimes it's the fear of having too much. Yes, fear of abundance is real. It whispers, if I get more, I might change. People will judge me. What if I can't handle it? But here's the truth. Abundance doesn't corrupt, it reveals. If your heart's already surrendered, more money doesn't make you greedy. It makes you dangerous to darkness. It lets you fund dreams, sponsor missions, change laws, shape minds, build nations. So, if the enemy can't stop you with sin, he'll use smallness. He'll use fear of failure. Or worse, fear of success. Because success demands responsibility. And some people would rather feel holy than be effective. But that's not who you are. You were born to multiply. You were born to reign wisely. And you were not given power, love, and a sound mind to keep living like a slave in Egypt. So renew your mind. Not just to escape poverty, but to embrace purpose. This isn't mindset coaching. It's a mental exodus. Let me ask you something. Are you building a fortress or a hut? Because far too many believers have big dreams but fragile foundations. A hut says, let me just build something small and safe. Something that won't take too much. Something I can manage on my own. But a fortress? A fortress says, I'm preparing to house legacy, to host armies, to withstand storms, to protect territory. Here's the reality. You can't build a fortress on scarcity. Scarcity doesn't scale. It crumbles. And huts, no matter how cute or humble, cannot survive fire. That's why so many people start things and quit. They launch a business, then shut it down. They build a ministry, then burn out. Not because the vision was wrong, but because the structure was too weak to sustain it. You weren't created to set up camp in temporary obedience. You were designed to construct permanent, legacy-level obedience. Let me be blunt. God doesn't hand out blueprints for castles to people who think like wanderers. If you're not willing to stay rooted, stay consistent, and go deep, why would God entrust you with something massive? This is where endurance matters. This is where you stop treating every opportunity like a pop-up shop and start building something that will outlast you. Money isn't about flexing. It's about foundation. It's the mortar between the bricks that hold generations in place. When you build a fortress, you're not just making space for you. You're building for your kids, your community, your calling. You're preparing a place that can survive culture wars, economic downturns, and demonic assaults. Think about it. While the world is spending billions shaping media, policy, and culture, we're still praying about the budget for Bibles. That's not because we lack passion. It's because we've lacked fortresses. We've built tents of influence when God called us to construct strongholds. Tents fold when the wind blows. Fortresses stand. So the next time you feel tempted to play it safe, ask yourself, am I building a hut for comfort or a fortress for kingdom impact? Because one is about hiding, the other is about ruling, and your calling requires you to build accordingly. Now we need to deal with one of the most dangerous lies in the church. The idea that poverty equals piety, that the less you have, the holier you are. Let me be clear, that is a lie. A well-packaged, Bible-sounding lie that has kept generations of believers trapped in lack while convincing themselves that it's somehow righteous. And it usually hides behind one word, contentment. But let me tell you what's really going on. We've confused contentment with complacency. We've rebranded fear as wisdom. We've disguised disobedience as humility. Contentment is a heart posture, not a financial position. It means I can have peace whether I'm in the palace or the prison. It does not mean I reject growth. It does not mean I avoid abundance. And it absolutely does not mean I bury what God gave me in the ground. Remember the parable of the talents? The servant who buried his money didn't spend it on sin. He played it safe. And what did the master call him? Wicked and lazy. Not reckless. Not rebellious. Lazy. Because he refused to multiply what was placed in his hands. Some of you are afraid to fail, but don't realize that refusing to try is the ultimate failure in the kingdom. Let's call it what it is. I just want enough to get by really means I don't want to be responsible for more. I'm just being faithful where I am really means I'm afraid of what growth might demand from me. God isn't glorified by your lack. He's glorified when you rule wisely over what He gave you. When you grow it, steward it, and multiply it. And no, this isn't about greed. It's about obedience, about legacy, about kingdom responsibility. You don't need to apologize for wanting to be a good steward. You don't need to feel guilty for desiring overflow, especially when your heart is to give, to build, to fund, to serve. So stop hiding behind false contentment. Start moving in faithful expansion, because the kingdom needs people who don't just pray, but also prepare. Who don't just believe, but also build. You weren't called to just survive. You are called to thrive, and to lead others into the fullness of what God has made available. So stop playing small. Stop spiritualizing scarcity, and start multiplying what you've been given. If this video woke something up in you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button if you're done playing small. Drop a comment below and let me know which part hit the hardest, or where you're going to start making the shift. And if you know this message needs to reach more kingdom builders like you, subscribe and turn on that notification bell, because this is just the beginning. We're not just talking about money, we're raising up a movement of spiritual strategists who are ready to fund the future. Let's build together. I'll see you in the next video.